All right, welcome back to the OBC podcast channel. I'm joined today by Pastor Dustin Janney and Josh Zuniga, who just moved here with Freeway Ministry. So we want to learn about you and all the cool stuff about God moving you and your wife here. So we're going to dive right into it. Tell us about your experience when you were in the Freeway program.
So in the Freeway program, 2015, I went into the program. It was August. I got released from the cardiac ICU. It was my last time in there. I went in 4 times in a 16-week period, and I would get out, go right back in, get out, go right back in. And the last time I got released, I woke up, and the director of the rehab that I was at called John Stroop, the director of Freeway, and said, listen, we can't take him back at the rehab. We have no other options. We have no other resources. Will you go visit him? So John came. He was in my room. I'm literally just coming out of drug-induced coma, so everything's hazy, foggy. I don't know what's going on. I had seen John before because in that rehab, they bust you out on Saturday nights to go to Freeway. Okay. So I knew who he was. It wasn't my first time seeing him. I knew who he was. I couldn't figure out. I couldn't put together. I'm like, why was he in my room? And he was just sitting there as I woke up, and he told me he got a call and told me about the Freeway Discipleship House and the program. And from the get-go, I'm just saying yes, having no idea what I'm saying yes to. I had nowhere to go. I was literally going to go back to living in my truck and being homeless after that. So he's just like, slow down, and told me a little bit more about the house, what the structure's like, what's required on my part to go into the house, because they don't just accept anybody. And he's like, you have to have some skin in the game, and people get in your business. It's not easy, but we do it out of love. And so I said, yeah, I'm willing to give it a shot if you'll give me a shot. And I got released from the hospital on a Thursday, and my grandma came and picked me up and took me to the house. And we met Stroop in the parking lot across from the discipleship house. And my grandma meeting him. It was just a sweet time because she comes from a very conservative background. And just seeing John, you could tell at first when she first saw him, didn't kind of know what to think. Tattoos all over and on his neck and everything. And she talked to him like he was one of her kids, and she's at the end of it, he gave us a tour of the house, and he just said, listen, I feel so safe and so comfortable with leaving Josh here with you guys and with this program. That's cool. And she'd walk through a lot of it then, because up until then I was staying in their basement for a little bit. So that was kind of my entry into the discipleship house. So that started in 2015 of August.
For you, starting at the discipleship house, was it kind of a rude awakening for you at the beginning, or did you kind of settle in pretty quick?
It was so it was a little bit of both. Up until that time, I'd been in to multiple kind of sober living, halfway type house situations. So I was familiar with at least part of the concept of what it was like living with other people, coming, struggling. So that wasn't new to me. But in the aspect of, I've never been in a sober living house that was Christ-centered and this discipleship base, because that's what, we call them discipleship houses. So that was a rude awakening, because up until that time, the Bible, Christianity, none of that had been implemented in my sobriety. It was all done through basically, like a secular worldview. It was with the programs, the medications, the AAs, the NAs. So that was a rude awakening at first. And I felt like I went in, and even the guys that looked like me, though, they were talking about Jesus. They had a Bible. We started my very first night after being there for a few hours. There was Thursday night Bible study. And I just, that was a rude awakening for me, because it was completely new to me. I had no idea.
So how long into your experience at the discipleship house did it really start to click? Or is that where you put your faith in Jesus as Savior, or had that,
Yeah, so I got saved. I came in on a Thursday. We had Thursday night Bible study. I believe that night God just started working on my heart. I didn't know what was going on. It's just walls started being tearing down, for sure. And then Friday night, we had a Friday night Freeway service at that time at Southside Baptist Church. And I heard the gospel, but I was sober. I heard the gospel. I was sober. I was around, even though I didn't know these guys yet, I knew that they were pursuing the same path I was. And so seeing them there, just kind of watching and observing how they were interacting, what they did during worship, service, and all that. So God started working on my heart that night. And I wanted to go down front Friday night. I did. I wanted so bad to, but I didn't know. I'm like, I can't go walk down in front of all these people. Yeah. And I was scared to death too. I was like, well, let's wait for tomorrow night. And then that Saturday night service, which was like 3 times bigger than Friday night service, I got saved that Saturday night at the end of the service. It's a big gym, an old gym, Springfield Public or Christian Schools, and then they had like a second tier balcony. So I was in the farthest back you could go. I was all the way to the very, very back. So I felt like that was kind of setting myself up for a barrier. Hey, I don't want to walk down in front of all these people, but altar call I was down there, and we had altar workers, and they kind of came and counseled me. And it was different since I was in the house. The men there kind of came around, hey, this is your next steps. This is what this looks like. This is what this means. So, making sure it's not just, hey, raise your hand, repeat after me, and then everything's okay after that. It wasn't. They said, listen, you still got a lot of hard road ahead of you because you spent so long making those decisions. But it's going to be different now because you're walking with Christ with it. So, that's Saturday night. So 3 days after being Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Yeah. So you said the house you were in or the program you were in before, they had a relationship with Freeway and would go to the services. So did you go to a Freeway service when you were in the other program?
Yeah, so it was a 30-day lockdown rehab. I mean, you couldn't, as far as going, you couldn't leave. They had everything. They told you when you could use the restrooms, when you can eat. It's very institutionalized in that. And it's for 30 days. The only time anybody was ever able to leave, they said, listen, on Saturday nights, they bus us out to this place. You don't have to go. People can stay here. Most of the people all went, though. One thing in the rehab, though, you couldn't have any sodas. It was off limits. And they said, hey, if you go, they give you free sodas. So literally that's the first reason I went to Freeway the very first time is we went up there, and they have a special section there for the rehabs that they can sit in. And they do that, one, to prevent – there's a lot of people coming in off the streets. Yeah. So they protect the relationships with the rehab to make sure someone can't just swoop by, give them something, and bring them back in the facility. So it was sectioned off, and we got there, and somebody came and took our soda order. I was like, do you want a Coke, Dr. Pepper, or Sprite? So that was the whole reason I went there. That was the very first time. And it was different because I've never seen such a widespread group of people there that looked like me, didn't look like me, and people even in an active addiction. And so that was the very first time I went to Freeway.
Okay, cool. So how long were you in the Freeway Discipleship House?
Right under 5 years. Okay. So it's a 1-year-long program. I was in right under 5 years. After about 3.5 months, a door opened for me to be a house leader. So every house, we have men's houses, we have women's houses. Every house has a house leader. They're the shepherd of the house. They're the ones that are making sure the men in the house or the women in the house are doing what they're supposed to do. They're making sure they're up in the morning, reading their Bibles together, doing their chores. If they have probation and parole meetings, court dates, they're making sure they're going to them. They're not missing anything. They take care of their rent. They're the ones giving them their drug test, checking, doing phones. We do phone checks. We get in their business. We hold them accountable in all areas of their life. So they're setting that bar. They're setting a spiritual thermostat in the house, saying, "Hey, this is what we're striving for." So about 3 months later, I had opportunity to go into that role. And
is that fast?
Yeah, that was fast.
Okay. What's the average that someone becomes a house leader?
Usually you start out with that structure, kind of becoming assistant leader, which I was only an assistant house leader for about a month. That person graduated. We had opened another house. And because of that put me in the position as we were opening another house to be able to step into that. So, and I was nervous. A lot of people coming into the house, we have this mentality, hey, this is our time just to work on us. And partially it is, but it's, kind of, hey, stay in your own lane, just worry about me, they can do whatever. But that really breaks that mentality when you get into a discipleship house, because we have the mentality is, listen, this is your brother in Christ. You're holding each other accountable. Just like, this is shoulder to shoulder ministry, bearing each other's burdens. This isn't stay in your own lane, because that's the old lifestyle. That's the old criminal street lifestyle is that. So, but what I was nervous, because I was younger for being a house leader, much younger. A lot of these guys were, multiple years older than me, had kids, had teenagers as kids. And we deal with everything as house leaders, from dealing with how to handle your money and funds, teaching them that stuff, to I had multiple talks about people with their hygiene, sitting down and telling these grown men that are older than me, like, hey, like, this is stuff you have to do. So like, am I fit to do this? Yeah. And everything I've tried in my life before, I couldn't leave myself out of a wet paper bag. It was just, everything had fallen apart, So for me to get asked to be in a leadership role, it's like, Yeah.
And at that time, John Stroop, was he kind of the one coaching you through the house, being a house leader?
Yeah, so at that time, because that's before Casey had came in and started taking over all the discipleship houses for the men. So John, he was my one-on-one. I was talking to, at least once a day, multiple times a week, checking in. He would come by, do house visits. He would come by as we did whole house UAs when we did the drug testing. That way he's there when the house leader has to be drug tested, because we did it when it's time for the house leader to be drug tested, the assistant leader is there, and we have accountability, but there can be points we make sure that they're still holding them accountable, that they're not hustling or playing any games, because we know how we used to be with that. So John was just fully hands-on at that time as we were beginning to go.
And then so for house leader after 3 months, and then you were house leader for another 4.5 years at the same house, or did you move to a different house?
I was in 3 different houses during that time. We had a Southside house, which is where I finished out the last about 1.5, 2 years there, which is where I started as assistant house leader. So it was sweet to go back there and finish there. And then we opened a house only for 1 year. It was the only house that we didn't buy. We rented it. Just because at that time we were having so many applications, we needed more room. And so I was there for a full year as we opened that. But through that allowed me to go to Bible college. So about 6-7 months in after being in the program, I didn't know what ministry was. I didn't know ministry was a thing that people could do even. I thought this is just what you did as your walk with sobriety. But then, with Freeway, it's not just get sober. And that's what we reiterate over and over again. Like, sobriety is not success. You can go be sober somewhere else. This is about a relationship with Jesus Christ. This is about being discipled, becoming a mature believer, and creating more disciples. And so through that training, through that maturity, growing up as a Christian in that short time period, I had such a burden and calling on my life that was clear and evident after sitting through multiple missions conferences at Crossway. When, does anybody want to come down here and surrender to full-time ministry? And I wanted to, but I wanted to make sure that I knew that I knew that I knew. And so I finally did. And at that point, just some godly men, including John, and some other men in my life at that time, my discipler, they came around and they said, hey, these are your next steps. If you're serious about this, you need to pursue this. You're getting leadership training and ministry training here at Freeway, but there's also more that you need to equip you to do this if you're serious. So I applied to Baptist Bible College. As a high school dropout, so I didn't know what was going to happen with that. I had my GED, but they accepted me. They said these are the kind of next steps you need to take, and that started in 2016. So it was right about a year later after being in the house, I started BBC.
Cool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Did you you work while you're in Freeway? So did you pay your way through college, or was there scholarships, or how'd that work?
So partial pay, partial loans with it. With being a house leader, you don't have to you don't have to pay rent. Okay. So that helped a lot. So I worked part-time.
Cool.
It was a place called Public Partnership. It was working with young adults with mental disabilities. So that's what I did full-time. I just had one client, and God gave me that job. It was so flexible. I got a schedule every month, and I just got a calendar. I got to create my schedule. So I could do it completely around all my ministry requirements. And I was with the same client for almost 4 years, and he was like a little brother to me. But I'd pick him up, take him to the mall, take him to movies, take him to the gym. This was the stuff to get him out of the house and do things like that, which was perfect and flexible about it. Part of it, his parents were Christians, so they were all about him going to church, so I could bring him to Freeway services. He wanted to go to that and church. So that was definitely God's hand, that job during that time to provide financially so I could do schooling.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And so when did, in the process, when did you and Alex meet and get married? And then when did you guys feel a call to open a new Freeway in Nixa?
Yeah, so we met first day of school. She was in my class.
First day of school for you?
Yeah,
okay.
And first day of school for her. So we both started at the same time. And she was in my class, and then our very first group project, we got put in the same group together. And I'm like, this girl's awesome, but I can't talk to her because I'm kicking people out of the house that are talking to women.
Right.
And I'm the one, responsible for that. So, we tell you, if a girl tries to talk or give you a hug, you give them the Heisman. You don't need to be talking, hugging, or anything to any girls. The relationship you need to work on is with Jesus Christ, and that's it. So, we had almost every class together, even up until our senior year. But it wasn't till our junior year, which was at 4 years in the house, that God had opened the door through John and leadership there, that he addressed me and said, listen, I believe this is time for you, if you want to pursue, courting or a relationship. I'm behind you. I want you to do it the right way. And so it's like, Alex. And God opened that door. And we got married. And it just, through dating, through sharing our testimonies with each other, I told her my testimony, my background. She grew up, obviously, completely different lifestyles, a missionary kid in the Philippines. But I'd been able to bring her to Freeway services as we were dating, and I just saw she had not just a burden for that people group, but she had a burden for people. Mm-hmm. She has such a huge heart for people, and a love for people, and a love for the lost. So I didn't know how it was going to work, but I knew I wanted to do Freeway. That's what God had put on my heart. So we had some serious conversations, and what that would look like as we pursued this. And she said, I'm all in. And she asked me, do you feel 100% called? And I said, absolutely. She said, okay. And we got married in 2020.
I don't know, Josh.
We got married in 2019.
Okay.
That's what it was. We graduated 2020. I mixed them up.
Okay.
It's okay. She won't remember either.
We'll see.
It's tattooed on my neck. I can't read Roman numerals. So we got married in 2019, and right after we got married, a month later, just about, we launched the very first Freeway in Nixon, Missouri.
Okay.
So about 6 months prior to that, God had opened a door, and we knew the pastor there at Riverstone Fellowship. He was out of Crossway, which is where the very first Freeway came. He was a pastor and a church planter in Omaha, Nebraska, which we have a Freeway there. So he was very intimately involved with Freeway. And he's like, listen, we want one here. So we started talking and praying through that, and God opened the door, and so we launched Freeway. And that was our very first one in 2019.
Cool.
Yeah.
And so you guys did same weekend Saturday night service?
Yeah, we did Saturday there.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And then opened a house.
Yep. We tried to buy a strip club first, and then God closed the door on that and gave us a house, which was better. So right in front of our church, it was kind of an industrial plaza. They called it a gentleman's lounge, but it was called Illusions Strip Club. And the door had been kicked in so many times, and notorious for drugs coming in and out. And it got to the point where they were about to get shut down, and we knew that the owner was getting sick, so we set up a meeting and said, hey, we want to buy this. And we probably had about a 2-month process meeting and making offers through people hearing that. We just had people come alongside, people I didn't even know, and I had gotten calls and said, we have about $350,000 in cash ready to go. If you guys can buy this, they don't want strings attached. They'll give it to you to buy this building. And I'm like, what a testimony that our Freeway South building will be in a place where so much darkness used to be. It needed tons of work. And I believe God saved us from that, because they didn't take the offer, but just the work that was needed in there. I mean, it was bad. It had been shut down for a while with COVID and everything. So when that door closed, I went back in front of some of the people that we did know that were donors, and I said, hey, we need to buy a discipleship house. Would you be willing to let us use this money to purchase a house? And we did. So we bought our very first house in Nixa, Missouri, which there's not really those type of resources where we were in Nixa. People say go to Springfield, Missouri, which it's not that far. It's just there wasn't those resources. So us having a house there was a big deal. And we opened that in 2020.
Cool.
Yeah.
So at some point in there, I became aware of you guys and the ministry that you were doing, and gave you a call. I believe it was probably the summer of 2020, I think, or 2021, summer of 2021, I think. Whatever. I don't know the date.
It's not tattooed on
It's
his
not
neck. He
tattooed
doesn't
on
know.
my neck,
Yeah.
but called you guys, talked to you. We met up in Springfield in May, and then you guys came down in, I think, June, just to kind of see what we were doing, because I just wanted to pick your brain a little bit, and because we were new to, first homeless ministry, and then became aware of the need, for recovery and addiction support ministry. And so when you guys came down, to kind of see what we were doing here, like, what were your initial thoughts as you came down? And this was before, there was really any serious conversation about you guys coming here permanently. But
Yeah, that was at the very beginning. So I'd never really been to Florida much at all. So I didn't know what to expect. I knew it was a bigger city. And we came down here, and we hit the ground running. We went out for the outreaches. I got to see the Sanford service, and then going out on Fridays into the homeless camps here. And we have some homeless camps there, but it's such a different capacity here with them. As we went into the woods, I was just like blown away. I'm like, this is like what we see pictures of, because we don't predominantly deal with homeless where we're at as much as we do people reentering out of prison and an active addiction with that. So that was just mind blowing, and I was fired up, and just seeing that and seeing your guys's just heart for it. Seeing you out there, just as the pastor and going out, and the team's not just me sitting out. So that was really cool with that. And then that was the first time we met Arthur and Jess and them, and then just seeing their love for it. I'm like, these people are all in. Like, they're about it. They're not just talking about it. Like, they're all in doing it. And what was really cool though is when we went out, it was every person that we were going up to on the different sides of town, you guys knew their names. Yeah. Like, there was relationships with them already, and that was huge. That was really cool, because those relationships were real and genuine. I could tell as these individuals are coming out of the woods, they knew your guys' name. Like, they had a smile on their face. Like, they were excited to see you guys. And it wasn't just because you were bringing them lunch or bringing them waters. Like, there was a relationship there. Like, there was conversation. So that was really big for us. I think that was the first time Alex is like, could you ever see us living in Florida? And I was like, no, I really don't think so. I can't.
Well, I remember at the end of that trip, before you guys headed back, we had a meal, and I just said, hey, whenever you guys look at starting another freeway,
I remember that.
Think about Orlando. We need a freeway here, and kind of left it at that.
Yeah.
But then invited you guys back to be a part of our missions week in November, just to support what you guys were already doing. So when you came in November to Missions Week, that was 2021.
Yeah, that's this
crazy.
Week coming up.
That's crazy. Yeah,
Amari was 5 weeks old on a plane.
I remember I called you guys and said, "Hey, I know you just had a baby, so if you can't make it, that's okay." And you're like, "Oh no problem."
Yeah.
So, but man, it was great having you guys with us. But kind of tell us about that week a little bit, and what ultimately I want to figure out, like, when God moved your heart to decide that Orlando could be
so
place.
That missions week we came, and I've never been a part of a mission conference like that. Just we really did. We got to meet your people here. So the people at OBC was big, because they loved on us so well. We had some really good relationships with them, and getting to know them. And they wanted to know about our ministry. They wanted to know what we were doing and just about us and what Freeway was. And they got excited about it. So that was super impactful to us and our hearts with that, and started drawing it. And I think that's when God started kind of softening our hearts. So I think Alex's was pretty soft towards it already, but
in June of 21, apparently.
Yeah. Especially mine, because at that point I was like, okay, we could possibly do this, because I was like, how would I raise a kid in a big city like this? I'm used to like country type land, and Springfield's not super country, but it was right there around the corner. Yeah. Safe type things. And one of the things we're always preaching at Freeway, is God doesn't use people in his comfort zone. Like, look through the Bible, how many people were in the comfort zone and they were used by God. It's always stretching them outside their comfort zone. And so God really started softening my heart towards that. And then we came back a little bit later for
high school retreat.
The high school retreat. And so at that point, I'd started praying about it. I didn't tell Alex, though. And I think Alex had been praying about it. Her and I didn't talk about it. And then when we came back for high school retreat, our son stayed back home. And it was just us because she was leading worship for it. And that's, I think, officially when we had our very first talk. And I just remember looking at me like, are you serious about this? Yeah. And I said, yeah, I don't know, God's put on my heart more and more. The need here is so huge. We love the people. We love the leadership. We love the church. And that was such a big deal. And at that point, we're like, okay, well, how do we do this? We got to get Dustin and Brooke alone because we were just there, mainly with the high school retreat. So we're like, well, let's see if they're available. Then you would text, you want to do dinner? I'm like, hey, this is perfect. Like, God just answered that open door. And we sat down for dinner, and Alex just kind of nudging me the whole time, like under the table, like, hey, when are you going to ask him? When are you going to bring it up? And then about I think it was after the amazing Caesar salads, I was like, so you still serious about a Freeway Orlando? Yeah. And a little did I know you guys had that agenda as well, but you played it super cool. Like, I mean, yeah. Well, so tell me more.
And it's funny because, Brooke and I invited Josh and Alex to dinner, and we said, we got to get them alone. We got to,
this is
we
wonderful.
got to ask them. And so we were sitting out waiting for a table, and I was kind of asking some leading questions, and Brooke is elbowing me, under the table, and then, it was, and we had kind of decided, we'll ask them about it, but then we're not going to bug them anymore. If this isn't it, then God has a different plan.
Yeah.
And so, it was an answer to prayer for us.
Yeah.
As well.
When do you believe God put that in your heart and in our church's heart to even ask them about a freeway?
Well,
I know, there was jokes in Missions Week, like you guys want to start one, but when did you say, I'm going to ask Josh about it?
The first time I ever talked to him on the phone, so that was a year and a half before. So, we started the outreach ministry just because we couldn't not do it, because God was just leading us in that direction. And so we didn't know what we were doing. We just said yes. God brought people around it who were just willing to serve, Ferdy and Wanda Onandia, Roberto and Maricel, Matei, Miss Lucy Santiago, Karina Ibarra serving, and a handful of other people who were going out every Friday. Then we had other people who would help serve on Saturdays. Teresa Hugo would do nurse, medical ministry, and several other people who just served faithfully. Micah Colley was our check-in guy every week. And so God was just building a team, but there were some things, especially in addiction, that we just didn't know how to minister. And so when I called and talked to Josh on the phone, he told me that he and Alex had a desire to plant freeways, that they had planted the freeway in Nixa, but their goal was every few years to plant, a new freeway. And so I thought, oh, that's good, because we, maybe they can plant one here. Yeah. And so immediately, as soon as I finished that conversation, I called Arthur and said, Arthur, I just talked to this guy. We're going to go see him in May. Told him about Freeway, told Brooke, and we started praying about it. And then just praying for God's timing. And so had some kind of conversations. And then, when, and it's all God's timing, because
it was,
when we first had a conversation on the phone, we were not ready for a freeway. We were still building a team. We were still figuring out if this was gonna last. October is 2 years since we started our outreach ministry. So it's been 2 years now since we started that ministry. And so, we didn't know if that was a 6-month thing or if that had some legs. Right. And so now God has sustained that over 2 years. God has brought more people, and I've named a few names that I shouldn't have, because there's so many other people who have been serving there. We just, last night had an interest meeting with over 60 people there. Got another one tomorrow night. But I think it took time for 100 people to show up for these interest meetings.
Absolutely.
It took 2 years of God just laying the groundwork through faithful obedience.
Yeah.
And we've told you the story. God provided $1 million to buy houses through crazy circumstances. All of these things, when God puts something on your heart, this is just good for anybody.
Yeah.
When God puts something in your heart, it doesn't mean it's going to happen tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right? You just obey, and you don't give up, and you don't get frustrated. You just keep obeying, and you just keep praying, just keep having conversations. But to see the way God is working in Josh's heart over here, from the time he woke up and saw John Stroop in his hospital room, like God started doing a thing.
Yeah.
And Josh's heart, that Scripture says from the foundation of the world, God had a plan, but at that moment, like, things are in motion.
Yeah.
And God had already been working through circumstances in Josh's life. But so God's doing a thing in Josh's heart. Over here, God's doing a thing in our heart. We don't even know Josh. He doesn't know us.
Yeah.
He never had a thought of moving to Florida. And so these things are happening. Somewhere there's a guy that's eventually going to give $1 million to this ministry, and
Yes.
God's working in his heart, teaching him about the value of giving, and and God's moving in Arthur and Jess's heart to bring them here to OBC to eventually plant a church, but to help us build an outreach ministry here. And all of these little pieces, God's moving, and all of a sudden we all end up in the same room. We're like, hey, how'd you get here?
Yeah.
How'd you get here? I don't know. And and then God just says, here's the plan, guys. And so that, what started as a couple of years ago as, I don't know, let's just try something. Now we're going to close on a house in a few weeks. Like, we made an offer on a discipleship house. It's been accepted. We're going to close. We're going to have over 100 people show up to find out how they can serve.
Yeah.
And that just starts with God, and then he calls us to just follow. And then he starts, breaking down, softening our heart, putting the pieces together. So here we go. We find ourselves, it's moving really fast now.
Yes.
It went from slow, and now it's just like, whoa.
Yeah, literally, like, slow down.
Yeah.
It reminds me, this morning in Acts 5, I read, it's when, like, the apostles get arrested and then they're preaching, like, the angel lets them out of jail, and then they find them and, like, these guys are preaching. They bring them in. They're, like, telling them, you can't do this anymore. And the one guy pulls them aside and said, hey, before y'all get too crazy, if this is man-made, just let it fizzle out. All these other times it's done it. But if God's in this, you can't stop it, and you might find yourself opposed to God. And it was just like this crazy thing, like, God is moving in ways that don't make sense. So while all this is happening, and we did have somebody through crazy circumstances give $1 million, what were some, like, talk about when you guys had that conversation in February of this year, 2022? So whatever, 9 months ago. What has God done specifically in yours and Alex's life, like, to provide and, like, confirm in these last 9 months that you guys are supposed to be here and made it happen?
Yeah, so the circumstances just leading up to that, it was the same with that. So it was about 9 months ago the conversation happened. It took about 3 months for it to go into, like, really say, okay, hey, this is it for sure. Now let's start making the moves. What are the first steps to do on our end with that? So with that, we just bought in a house a year before. So that was a big thing is no one, for my side of the family and coming up and for me to own a house, that's something I never thought would happen. I just got my first house, and we're getting it redone and remodeled through some circumstances because we got it at an amazing price because God opened the door for that, and that was His hand in us getting the house, 1,000%. There's no reason. This is for somebody that 7 years prior couldn't even open a bank account because I was red flagged at all the banking institutions around us. So I'm like, you gave me a house and now you want me to leave? Like, what are you doing? And I was like, no. And I just remember just looking around the house, like, as we were doing it, like, hey, all these memories are going to be here. The family's going to be here. We can host people. We want to. It's such a desire to host people for ministry. I've always wanted to have that house that we can do that, and God provided it. And that's why I didn't understand, and that was a hesitation. And then God again softened my heart, and it's like, these are just material things. Listen, you don't have to have this for ministry. So I'm like, okay, we got to put our house on the market. So we did. Gary Wilson, who's the missions pastor at High Street, it's a good family friend. He's the one that helped us through that. And I mean, 3 days later, the house was in closing. Yeah, and I remember calling you and telling you that, like, hey, we're doing it. We don't know where we're going to live at. There's not a house there. Yeah. We don't know anything yet, but this is where we have to start. Yeah. So that was 6 months ago. We sold it in May. And so
in faith, not knowing where you're going to go when you sell this house.
We went through multiple places. I mean, we stayed in some friends' basements, multiple different friends' basements, at Airbnbs, at hotels for 6 months. I mean, we were on the road. My son turned 1 on the road. My wife turned 25 on the road. And but through that, God had made some amazing relationships and provided in a way, because we raise our own support. And so through that, we had to raise our support so we can come here and continue to do this and focus fully on it. You know, here I believe we're going to have a lot higher capacity dealing with women and having a women's house here, which Alex needs more hands-on doing that, and the need for her and help, because I need help too with that. And so that was it. And that was the first time, you know, we both wanted to be all in doing ministry, and not just me doing ministry and then her staying at home. And that was it. Like, cause she has such a desire. Yeah. And that was hard at the beginning, because she comes from a family of strong leaders. She's been equipped for it. And I'm like, you're not being used at your potential. Like, you could be such an asset. So God provided those doors and opened for that to move here. So we got a storage unit, which was so hard to find with everybody selling their house. I mean, I called so many storage units. They were all booked up. Oh, wow. Almost every storage unit I called, they said, listen, we're building more units right now because it was so lucrative to just open storage units, because they were all sold out. I found some. They were pretty sketchy, but they did the job. And we moved everything into the house, which I didn't have to move any of it because I was here for Hero Day. Mm-hmm. So I left my wife at home, but we had a huge team from church, from Riverstone. They came and they got it all knocked out for us. So we got it put in there, and then we had to figure out, when are we coming here? Yeah. So we kind of talked back and forth with that. We got about 6 weeks scheduled in Texas for fundraising at different churches, and we finally found a date that would be good for us to come here. And we got to come for a couple weeks before we started the Texas trip, just to lay some foundation. And even in that time, the couple weeks we were here, God opened doors for probation and parole, the Orange County Jail to get into that. So that was super huge. And then figuring out how we're going to get all our stuff here.
Yeah. But even on that trip, when you guys were here for those few weeks, I remember we were having a hard time finding a place for you guys to stay while you were here.
Yeah.
And we found Airbnb, and I went and talked to Corey and said, hey, here's what it is, you know, and he said, well, why don't we pay for that for them, you know, so they're not out on that. And you called about that same time as I was standing in Corey's office, and I knew.
Well, you actually asked me, should we pay for them to send them like $2,000 to move their stuff down here, or should we pay for their Airbnb? Yeah. And we were like, well, let's just pay the Airbnb. And that's when the phone rang, and you called him at that same time. So now you can jump back into that.
Yeah,
yeah.
So
that's when we got the call, because we didn't know. There was a good friend whose house actually we stayed at. The company he worked for, the owner of the company owned a moving company up in Kansas City, and I reached out to him at the end. Once we figured out it would take a couple moving trucks, and we'd have to have people drive one way, then fly them back, and we're just trying to put the numbers together. And he said, well, let me reach out to him. And it'd been about a week. Every time I tried to get a hold of him, he was like, yeah, I'm still figuring things out, and just acted real kind of cryptic about it. And then he's like, all right, here's the deal. I'm sorry, I've been just kind of sketchy about it. We've been trying to figure out how we could do this for you. So the church is pitching in, and then the owner of the company is going to cover the rest, and they're professional movers. They'll drive everything down and take care of all the moving for you. Yeah. And it's done and taken care of. And then I was like, I got to call Dustin. All right. So
so Josh called me to tell me that the moving expenses were covered. Mm-hmm. Well, we had talked. There was also some other expenses that kind of took you guys by surprise that God provided, you know, in all kinds of crazy ways. Yeah. And he told me that, and I said, well, I have more good news for you then, because we're going to pay for your, you know, apartment while you're here. God opened up a door for a rental house that that we were looking at, trying to figure out while, so God has just opened up a lot of doors along the way. And not only that, from the very beginning when we said we're going to do this, but didn't know, we have supported you guys, but we wanted to increase that support substantially. And we didn't know how we were going to do it, but that's when originally God provided $30,000 through the
in
random.
May.
So just so many little God stories throughout the whole thing. To confirm getting us up to this point.
It was. I mean, one thing after another. I mean, we would be fools to not do this and pursue it and go all in with it, because it was doors that nobody literally could open besides God with it. I can't tell you how many times I hung up the phone, looked at Alex in just tears, and she's like, "What now?" And I mean, it's just, but a good what now?
Yeah.
It's just, I was like, it doesn't make sense. And that's what we kept talking about. I'm like, it doesn't make sense. We have so many missionary friends that are on the phone just trying to get answers, trying to get through to somebody. And I'm like, it doesn't make sense. Why is God? He's just giving it to us like one after another. And we're having people call us that we're not even pursuing after. And it just, you can't explain it any other way. It's because he gets all the glory. He gets all the credit.
And you mentioned Hero Day. I remember the first time Dustin decided to tell the church about Freeway and like a possibility, like after you guys had that February meeting. And that was when like the guy gave a giant chunk of money, like when you decided to tell the church. And then after Hero Day, that's when he did like the double down. So it's like every time he would like say it from the stage, like, I feel like God's telling us to do this, there would be a giant check that says, you should really do this. So just laughable things that God did along the way and continues to do.
So here we are. We're about to close on a house. January, we're going to launch Freeway services on Saturday nights. 100 people are showing up to figure out how they can serve and be a part. But what are some big things we need to be praying for that we can see God answer in some big ways? I know we need a house leader. So talk a little bit about that, how we can be praying through that. And, what kind of person is that? What is that going to take?
So house leader, we need to pray for somebody that I would love, that is all in, wants to surrender to ministry. We have a lot of graduates in the Springfield area that have been through the Timothy Project that are in the second stage housing. But I want them to come, not just because it's Florida, but because they have a desire to do full-time ministry. So what I'm praying for is one of them to commit to 16 months with us. And because of that, they wouldn't have to worry about rent, that we can get a part-time job with them. But then we can give them hands-on, full-time ministry and leadership training, and they have an opportunity to do it here for 16 months. Obviously, they want to stay, they can stay after that, but that's what we're praying for a commitment with that. The other ways that we have house leader is we fill the house, and we see who rises to the occasion. And with it being by where we live and by where we're working every day, I mean, I can drop in at random times, keep people on their toes. So we've done that before, that route as well. But it's so nice to have somebody that's waking up there with them and going to bed there with them that has already has skin in the game with that. So be praying specifically for that. Another big prayer is as we move forward and we're starting the Orange County Jail Ministry, that we can be a resource. So for the connections for probation and parole, and for housing plans for us to be, for men and women eventually coming out of prison and coming out of county jail, that we can get approved and we can be one of those resources. That's going to be huge for our discipleship house with that.
Yeah. Cool.
So,
well, he can do it.
Yeah.
He has
I think
proven
I
it
think he
over
might.
and over again.
Yeah. Quite confident.
Awesome.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing your story even more in depth. Every time I hear it,
Absolutely.
I learn something more. So, thank you so much for tuning in. And if you're part of our church, please get a part of Freeway, and you can find Josh and ask him all the questions. But continue to pray for us, and we love you. We'll see you in the next video.
All right.